All right, let's dive right into this explainer of a seriously profound ancient text. We're talking radical philosophy, mystical visions, and some pretty intense human drama. Today, we're unpacking the Gospel of Mary. And let me tell you, this is a remarkable document that gives us a totally different window into early spiritual thought. It doesn't just hand us a different set of rules, it completely flips the script on how we understand our connection to the divine, the physical world, and honestly, who even has the authority to talk about these things in the first place. So if you've ever been hooked by lost histories or esoteric philosophy, you're absolutely going to love how we break this down today.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover Section 1, an introduction to secret teachings, then Section 2, the nature of matter and sin. Section 3 covers the journey and liberation of the soul. Moving on to Section 4, the dispute over Mary's authority, and finally, Section 5, the search for truth within. Let's get to it. Kicking things off with Section 1, Introduction to Secret Teachings. So our story actually begins at this pivotal, highly emotional moment. The Savior has just given his final instructions to go preach the gospel of the kingdom, and then he departs. But instead of feeling empowered, the disciples are literally terrified. They're weeping, looking at what just happened to their teacher, and they're terrified for their own lives if they step out into the world. But then enter Mary. Right in the middle of all this chaos and fear, she takes charge to stabilize the panic. She stands up, greets them, and tells them, hey, do not weep. Don't be distracted, assuring them that grace will protect them. Her leadership right here really sets the stage for the remarkable revelations she's about to drop. She successfully turns their hearts toward the good. And seeing her unique position, Peter actually acknowledges that the Savior loved her more than other women, and he specifically asks her to share the words of the Savior that she knows, but that the rest of them haven't heard. Now, notice how the Savior's parting words here direct the seeker's focus entirely inward. It completely bypasses external rules. I mean, just before leaving, he explicitly warned them not to be led astray by people pointing and saying, look here, or look there. Instead, the ultimate guide is strictly internal. He tells them to lay down 0 rules beyond what he appointed, and to not issue laws like some kind of strict lawgiver. The path to truth, at least according to this text, isn't about following a rigid external checklist. It's all about discovering that divine spark residing right within your own being. Moving right along to Section 2, the nature of matter and sin. This part of the text builds a totally unconventional framework when it comes to morality, the physical world, and human failure. This is where the philosophy gets incredibly deep and honestly departs completely from the traditional views you might be used to. The crucial point here is that sin isn't presented as some inherent flaw or a cosmic legal violation. Nope, it's actually described as an action against nature that causes spiritual sickness. When Peter asks, what is the sin of the world? The Savior replies that sin doesn't actually exist in the way they think it does. Instead, humans create it. We create it when we engage in chaotic, destructive behaviors, which the text describes as the nature of adultery. And here, that means a mixing of things that just don't belong together. It's this unnatural mixing that ultimately leads to suffering. To really grasp that, we have to look at nature as the ultimate origin point. The text tells us that every nature, form, and creature exists in and with each other, but ultimately, everything's going to dissolve back into its own roots. Disease and death? Well, they only happen because we get disconnected from this harmonious root, from the one who can actually heal us. It even goes so far as to say that matter itself gives birth to a passion that is against nature, and that's what causes confusion in the whole body. So the good came to restore this balance and return nature back to its proper healthy root. And that brings us to Section 3, the journey and liberation of the soul. So in response to Peter's request for her secret knowledge, Mary begins detailing this vivid, mind-bending vision she received. She actually asks the Savior how a vision is seen. Is it through the soul or the spirit? And the Savior explains it's actually through the mind, which acts as the intermediary between the two. This leads right into the most mystical part of her revelation, brilliantly illustrating a really perilous cosmic journey. It maps out exactly how the soul has to declare its freedom from earthly attachments in order to ascend. Mary describes the soul moving upward and being challenged by different cosmic powers. First, it meets the third power, ignorance, which tries to judge and bind the soul, but the soul defends itself. It states that it recognized that all earthly and heavenly things dissolve, and importantly, it didn't judge or bind others. Having successfully passed ignorance, the soul moved even higher to face its ultimate challenge, the fourth power. Now, this ancient esoteric list breaks down the 7 forms of wrath the soul has to defeat. Think of it essentially as a psychological map of human struggles.
The fourth power confronts the soul with darkness, desire, the excitement of death, and various forms of foolish and wrathful wisdom that are tied to the physical flesh. These powers actively interrogate the soul. They ask things like, "Where do you come from, killer of men?" Or "Where are you going, conqueror of space?" Basically, they are doing everything they can to pull the soul back down into the confusion of the material world we were just talking about. But, overcoming these powers, the triumphant soul announces its complete liberation. It declares that it has been freed from the world, freed from the bonds of forgetfulness, and from all the things that tried to turn it back. With desire ended and ignorance totally dead, the soul achieves its final goal. Mary explains that from this moment on, the soul will attain the rest of time, of the season, of the aeon, existing in pure, eternal silence. Pretty powerful stuff, right? All right, let's shift gears to section 4. The dispute over Mary's authority.
So just as Mary finishes outlining this profound cosmic rest and falls silent, earthly reality comes crashing abruptly back in. The sublime vision is over, and what follows is some intense skepticism and, honestly, interpersonal conflict among the disciples. Andrew speaks up first, stating flatly that he does not believe the Savior said these things. He actually calls Mary's teachings strange ideas. Then Peter vehemently doubts Mary's account as well. He brings up a central question of the whole text regarding who holds true authority. He is deeply offended by the idea that the Savior would impart secret knowledge to a woman instead of openly to the male disciples. He literally asks if they are now supposed to turn around and all listen to her. This actually brings Mary to tears. She asks Peter if he really thinks she made this all up in her own heart, or if she's just lying about the Savior. What we're looking at here are two distinct historical perspectives straight from the source material. It's a classic clash of worldviews. On one side, we've got Peter's reliance on orthodox hierarchy. He demands openness, he clings tightly to the traditional structure of the group, and he's highly skeptical of anything that sounds outside the norm. On the other side, we have Levi, also known as Matthew, who steps right in to defend Mary. Levi's defense is rooted purely in spiritual grace and internal worthiness. He fully accepts that the Savior's preferences just aren't bound by our standard human conventions. Levi forcefully counters Peter's hot-tempered objection. He calls Peter out for being hot-headed and argues that he's treating Mary like an adversary. Levi's point is incredibly sharp. He points out that the Savior knows her very well, which is exactly why he loved her more than them. The ultimate argument he's making is that if the divine deemed her worthy to receive and share this knowledge, mortal men have absolutely no right to reject her, just because of their own bruised egos or traditional hierarchies. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5. The search for truth within. Levi successfully redirects the divided disciples here. Instead of bickering over who's in charge, he urges them to feel ashamed of their arguing, to put on the perfect human, and to just go forth and preach. Crucially, he reminds them of the Savior's exact instructions. They are to preach the gospel without laying down any new, arbitrary rules or laws beyond what was already given. And this leads us to a beautiful, anchoring quote from the very beginning of Mary's vision that reminds us of the text's core thesis. When the Savior tells her, "Blessed are you that you did not waver at the sight of me, for where your mind is, there is your treasure," it perfectly encapsulates the entire message. True enlightenment, spiritual connection, and overcoming the material world, it's all ultimately a matter of inner focus. The treasure isn't out there in some strict set of rules or rigid hierarchy. It is right there within the mind that connects your soul and spirit. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. The Gospel of Mary challenges its readers to abandon the comfort of external validations and face the journey of the soul directly. Based on the insights we've unpacked today from this ancient text, how much of your own journey or your own understanding of the world is hindered by constantly looking outward for authority instead of looking inward for the truth? Something to think about as you process these incredible historical insights. Until next time, keep exploring.